is in session. This is the Draft Seminar Rookie Profile Series hosted by myself, Matt Hicks, the FF Educator, and John Laub, the Gridiron Scholar. This is the Drake London Rookie Profile episode, and I am especially excited to break down the big man out of USC. Before we jump into it, I want to make sure everybody knows that the Rookie Big Board Profile Series is available on the NFL Draft Bible Podcast Network, as well as the Rookie Big Board YouTube channel and podcast channel. You can find all of John's work or more of John's work at footballdiehards.com, and all of my work, including the 2022 Rookie Big Board rankings, at patreon.com/the FF Educator. John, one of my favorites for a while has been Drake London. Are you equally excited about the big man?
I am, Matt. 2 years ago on our Devi show, I started speaking up very loud about Drake London and banging the drum for this young man. And I am so excited to see where he goes in the NFL draft, especially after the amazing season he just had for the USC Trojans. And Matt, maybe we got to start talking about USC and Alabama, LSU, Clemson, as far as wide receiver locker room. Nelson Aguilar, Juju Smith-Schuster, Michael Pittman, and last year, Amon-Ra St. Brown. They are producing talent at USC. They're recruiting it, they're coaching it, and the players are performing. Now,
John, I will quickly throw in there, we were higher than almost everybody else on Michael Pittman. We were higher than almost everybody else on Amon-Ra St. Brown. So maybe we just got to roll with the USC guys.
Absolutely, my friend. There's no question about it. He was the 2021 Pac-12 Offensive Player of the Year and first team All Pac-12. In 2021, he was third team All-American by the Associated Press. Matt, the numbers are silly. He only played 8 games, 119 targets, 88 receptions. That is insanity. 5 times he had double-digit receptions for the Trojans, and 6 times he went over 125 yards. 2020, he was second team All Pac-12, and he played on the Trojans basketball team at forward and played in 3 games. In 2019, he was third team freshman All-American by PFF, and you go all the way back to high school. He was a 2018 Prep Star All-American from California and a 4-star recruit, number 35 wide receiver in the country, and 247th player overall. Matt, what does your film analysis say?
Absolutely. You mentioned it here, but it has to start with his contested catch ability. Drake London is an absolute monster at the catch point. He is comfortable working through contact. He has endless examples. Flip on the Oregon tape in particular, and you can just see him absolutely dominate. Oregon 2020 tape absolutely dominates this defensive back. You flip on the Utah 2021 tape, you'll see him do it again against a defensive back along the sideline. His catch radius is huge. He's 6'5", and that length fits alongside of it. If you toss the ball up, Drake London can go ahead and pull it in. Now, it's not just his contested catch ability. His hands are really solid throughout his tape. Very few drops. You mentioned it, 119 targets in just 8 games and no drops. John, he was catching the ball from a true freshman Jaxson dart half of the time, switches his quarterback halfway through the season, and he's still catching everything. It's not just the boundary. He's a reliable underneath option. He pulls in off-target passes. He catches the ones he's supposed to. Really well-rounded. And you alluded to this, a dual sport athlete, a legitimate offer to play on the basketball team as well. Sometimes, they throw the bogus offer to recruits. No, he was an active member of the basketball program as well. Now, he looks super fluid for a guy who's 6'5". You wouldn't believe it with the fluidity that he runs with. His athletic ability really lines up nicely with great body control. He can hurdle players. John, the Utah tape, again, go back to it. He hurdles a defender. great vertical ability for his size. John, I like to point out a weakness in all the players. Drake London doesn't have very many weaknesses. His weakest category for me is still not bad, and that's acceleration. For a guy who's coming out at 6'5", he accelerates very well for his size. But if you're going to match him up 1-to-1 in a 40-yard dash compared to some of the other speedy wideouts in the class, he's not going to be able to keep up with them. Still, Drake London, very, very well-rounded tape review. But let's dig into his stats a little bit closer.
Before I get into stats, I want to mention one thing that you brought up here. His hands are amazing, Matt. I don't usually like to say natural hands catcher, but I don't remember seeing the ball get into his body very much. He just plucks that ball with those big hands, and there's a fluidity and a smoothness. He catches the ball, and his body and his feet work in unison, and he goes right upfield. I mean, just terrific hands. But let's talk about the stats. First thing, without Amon-Ra St. Brown, Drake London moved from the inside to the outside. Matt and I had spoke about this last year a lot. He had mostly played in the slot on campus. And there were some questions about his separation and about his route running and how deep his routes were. But I had mentioned, let's see him grow. Matt, he did everything I could ask. They moved him out to the outside, and Drake London even became better. He was simply spectacular this year. Despite missing 4 games, he had a team aerial dominator rating of 30%, and his catch rate, 71% this year, Matt. And you mentioned it, he played with different quarterbacks, and he just has these like magnets for hands that just corral these passes. And if you watch enough tape, you notice it constantly how good his hands are. Career-wise, despite playing behind Amon-Ra St. Brown, despite playing behind Michael Pittman, 160 career receptions for over 2,100 yards. And this is an interesting stat. Yards per reception, 13.5. But let's look at context and go backwards a little bit. 14.5 yards as a freshman, 15.2 yards as a sophomore. But then the number comes down because they peppered him with so many targets and he ran shorter routes. So he only had a 12.4 yard average. They used him differently. So I'm okay with that 13.5. I think there's room for improvement. 15 career touchdowns. And Matt, if you're in love with separation, people are going to rank Drake London lower. But what I try to do, how does he win? Drake London wins with body control, physicality, hands, route running, and versatility. I like Drake London a ton. What your fantasy footballers know, Matt?
Yeah, let's go ahead and translate everything we're talking about here for Drake London's fantasy football value. John, I have his NFL projection currently at day 1 late to day 2 mid, and that's only a reflection of so many wide receivers in this talented class. I would not be shocked if Drake London ends up a top 10 overall NFL draft selection. That's going to boost him into my weekly starter fantasy football tier, a solid wide receiver 2, living in that wide receiver 12 to 24 range with the upside absolutely on any particular week to be a top wide receiver 1 and the wide receiver 1 on the week. My rookie ADP projection for him is a round 1, mid round 1 guy, probably going to go somewhere in that 104 to 107 range in your rookie drafts, depending on format. And I can tell you, John, from all the mock drafts I'm doing, London is just going up, up, up. All right. So folks are catching on, and maybe we'll push it up even higher after this episode, John, when the viewers hear our excitement. And I got to tell you, I don't care what the price is. I'm going to pay it. I'm going to have high exposure to Drake London in my leagues because this is somebody whose value is only going to continue to rise throughout the early part of his NFL career. John, I'm very excited for Drake London, just like I'm very excited for the viewers to check out the entire Rookie Profile series. So if you enjoyed this episode and you're watching the video version, make sure you like it, subscribe, and let us know how you feel about Drake London. Are you just as excited as us? If you're listening, make sure to leave us a 5-star rating and review in whatever format you're watching on. Make sure to tune in for the entire Rookie Profile series. And as always, we appreciate you watching.